very special guest for you tonight.
Hello, we've been expecting you.
This is not a test. Your government and corporate overlords have implemented new measures for your own health and safety. We are just following orders.
Everything is going to be fine.
I'd like to introduce...
Welcome, everyone, to another If by Whiskey. Jake, I actually used the correct microphone input today, so I don't sound like absolute crap. How you doing today, bud? Now you're muted. Look what you did. Something happened.
I didn't mute myself. I said you're off to a good start.
Oh, phew. Well,
I think when you went live, it muted me automatically when you went live. So we're good.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
Okay, my apologies, sir.
What's going on, man?
Welcome, everyone. I don't know. Hey, did I miss anything? What's been going on? You go to Florida and a war erupts. What did you do?
Yeah, I went to Florida. That was nice. I got to watch the sun come up over the Atlantic, which I haven't done since last time I was in New York for a Yankee game. So that was cool. Yeah, I'm glad. This is one of those times where I'm glad I'm not in the stock market, just watching it like flop around like a fish out of water. But no, a lot's been going on. I'm some exciting stuff. I'm getting a supercharger put into my Blazer right now. I got a square body Blazer, a big lifted Chevy Blazer, getting a supercharger put on. So I'm excited about that. You know, car nerds.
So we talked about keeping that one and getting rid of one other one, right? Is this the one that you're decided to keep?
Oh yeah, I'm keeping that one. That one's getting a Torque Storm supercharger at the moment. The Aftershock Festival music band list, whatever you call it, artist list, came out today. A 4-day festival in Sacramento that we try and go to. And now that we're moving to Southern Oregon, it's going to be like a 4.5-hour drive instead of trying to like trek for a day and a half to get there from Seattle. So that's awesome.
Nice.
Good stuff going on, man. There's a lot of craziness in the world, but my life has been very, very calm. Work is going really good. I just got back from that summit last week in Florida, like you said. Learned a whole bunch of stuff about the company I'm working with and kind of where I'm heading, from here.
Yeah,
it's been good. It's been good. What about you?
Heard
you got a new toy.
I did get a new toy. So can I ask you guys? I mean, we're going to bring up our special guest. I guess I should wait to bring up our special guest to ask this question. So I'll wait for that. But I can tell you that this is what as someone who's trying to be forward thinking, we find that many calibers are necessary. It takes a high caliber individual, one might say, right? To like be able to prepare themselves for certain things. Now, I like to have things where I can take something out of one and put it in the other and it still works. Does that make sense? Okay, so I like cross-platform. So what I've been trying to do is find kind of like fill in longer metal objects that have incendiary devices attached to them in some way to assist, and that I can have cross-platform. Now, the question is this: should someone be high when they fill out the federal form? I'm just asking for a friend. I'm just curious about that question.
I don't know why not.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was a thing because I didn't do that, of course. I was just
Are you aiming to have like just one caliber across everything you have, or a couple calibers?
No, I certainly have a couple, but like, well, let's be honest. I mean, we need stopping power. We need also ones that are popular, right? So I have probably about 5 or 6 different calibers and multiple platforms of each caliber that I could take out of one and put in another, for example.
Nice.
So I don't want to obviously give up my whole thing. If someone were to do that, though, they might have 9 millimeters and 40 millimeters and 5.56 and 5.7 by 28. Might have some 12 gauge. Might have some, they might have some other 7.62 by 54R, perhaps. I don't know. Whatever.
Are you talking about tires now?
220, whatever it takes. What's that?
I said, are you talking tire sizes now?
I think we are. Yeah, 220R15. That's what we are, because we're talking about your supercharger, man. So
no, I'm really excited about our guest today, and I got to tell you a little bit of quick background about her.
Yeah, bring it.
couple months ago, just randomly scrolling my life away on X, I came across a post from this woman, and she was really giving a really poignant take on the shooting that happened in Minnesota with the crazy lady that was blocking the road, got shot in the face. The take that she gave, and I won't even try and summarize it because I will butcher it to all hell. But I highly suggest after we introduce her here that everybody goes and follows her on X. It really instantly I followed her. I started DMing her. I learned about that sounded creepy. I started following her. I saw that she was an author and wrote a book, and I was like, man, I really would like to talk to this woman on the show. Reached out to her while I was sitting in an airplane waiting to fly back to Oregon, I think, and just said, hey, your take on this Minnesota thing really caught my attention. I thought it was a really like well thought out, kind of equal on both sides, nuanced take. I'd love to have you come on the show. And she agreed to it. And I bought her book, and I've been trying to get, admittedly, I'm not all the way through it yet, but it's an amazing book. She covers a lot of different topics, and I can't wait to talk to her some more. But I'm just going to give you the quick intro real quick. She's an attorney, and she quit her practice to raise her kids, which right off the bat is like through the roof brownie points. Like someone to give up a career like that and stop doing that to raise a family is better person.
I cheered on the person that quit being a lawyer to be a baker. If you're going to raise a family, you know what I mean? Like that's like extra kudos. So congratulations.
But she had a couple things that we'll get into that happened to her, some tragedies, and she ended up moving up to the mountains in Utah, and she hosts some shows. She writes. She's all about prepping. This book that she wrote is amazing. I will show you here in a second without giving it away. But Suzanne Sherman is our guest today, and we're super excited to have her on the show. So feel free to bring her on up, Mr. Mark. There she is.
Welcome,
Hello.
Suzanne. Welcome.
Thank you.
So the book
Here.
is Federalism, which from somebody who's a prepper and somebody who I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this topic coming. It was like, wow, this is really interesting. And it's right up my alley. It's like how decentralization can save America. And I'm right on board with that line of thinking. And as you can see, I'm about, I don't know, most of the way through this book, but it's really just, it's easy read and not in a bad way. It's easy to digest. It's not a bunch of heady stuff that you're going to have to go grab a thesaurus and a dictionary to try and figure it out. There's chapters on the First through Fourth Amendment, immigration, criminal justice. I mean, it covers the gamut, and it's very impressive. And I've been waiting to talk to her, so I'm glad she's here. Welcome to the show, Suzanne. Thanks. Good to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, how's your Wednesday going? I guess so. It's Wednesday, right, Mark?
I think. Yeah.
All right. I want to know, we can just jump right into this. We're really big on people on our show. Like we're really big on people and less on ideology. It's more about the people and how people arrive at their ideologies. I think there's a lot of people that are misunderstood. And I saw a post like an hour ago that said, what's the thing that keeps the people on earth from being able to live in harmony? And my first two reactions were government and religion. You take those two things out, we're all good. But I really would love to know everything about your origin story. Like where did you come from? It sounds like you're in California for a while. That's where I was raised, Ventura County. And I'd love to hear your story. So jump in wherever you'd like to, but walk us through.
Yeah, I was born in San Francisco, and growing up in the Bay Area, we would hear stories about how California someday is going to be ending up in the ocean. Well, when you're a little kid, that could be any day. You have no idea. And yeah. I literally had sleepless nights wondering when that moment was going to happen. So
same thing for climate change and global and nuclear war, Cold War. Totally.
Well, and this is, I love that you mentioned climate change, because all of this happened to me in the school system, just like they're terrorizing kids right now with that. They never really explained plate tectonics. Yeah, this really it's going to take a long time. You're not going to be here. But I'm old enough that it was global cooling when that was what was terrifying everybody at the time. and the long gas lines were, then I guess we got the Department of Energy so we could be energy independent and not rely on foreign nations for oil. How's that working out? So,
right?
I always had this kind of fear in my mind, between what was the other one, the hole in the ozone, all of this. And I never really did anything about it. Left the city. I went to school in Southern California. I studied at UCLA undergrad. And I didn't, again, earthquakes, we had to deal with all of that. And I didn't really take serious action until I became a mom. And something really changed that. I mean, that changes you right away. It's not all about me anymore. So
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
When did the switch? Was like, I don't know how it was done, but like, I don't know if you did the testing or whatever, but was it the second you found it, your first child, you were pregnant? Like, did your literally did like a biological switch happen, or did it grow as you were slowly coming to motherhood? Your belly was getting bigger. You started, you know what I mean? Like, did the motherhood thing grow? Like, some people take to it so well. Some people are, different ways. I'd love to hear how you took to it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it wasn't just when I became a mom. It was actually before, when I knew we were going to be starting a family. We moved to an agricultural area, a little place called San Martin, between Morgan Hill and Gilroy, garlic capital of the world.
Oh,
and we bought about,
Gilroy and Hollister. Hollister hay balers. Let's do it. Woo!
Oh my gosh.
Right,
we have so much in common. We're going to have to talk some more. And so it was great ground there for growing things. So I started a garden there and got into that and started just wanting to put some food up, grew tomatoes, and I had more than I could process and deal with. So I started learning how to can. Then when I became a mom, we started taking disaster preparedness more seriously, earthquake preparedness, all of that. And I just got full into it. Oh, and then doomsday preppers came on, and how they sensationalize prepping and make you feel like, wow, you're really behind the eight ball if you don't have a shipping container to live in, or you're not bugging out with goats and ducks and wearing hazmat suits and that sort of thing. But I just started looking. I got online, got on Facebook, met a gal, Prepper Chicks. She had a page. We're still good friends till this day. And I started canning and just really getting into it. And then also I wanted to learn about firearms. I was going through an end of a marriage at my time too, and I wanted to be able to protect myself. And there was a lot of gang activity. I was also a criminal defense attorney, and I thought, I really should, take heed to what I'm learning is out there. So I started that.
Criminal defense attorney wanting to get into firearms. Most of the time, those things don't go together. Those tend to be like polar opposites.
It was defense of my kids. This was when that horrific story out of Connecticut came, when the two home invaders got into the home of a man wife, and they had two daughters. And it's a crazy story. In fact, we did a show about this as well. We called the show Never Surrender. And this family, the man was completely unprepared to protect his family, capitulated. The wife and one of the daughters went to an ATM with one of the perpetrators here while the husband stayed. They did everything they were told to do. They were all killed. I think the husband survived. And it turned out that they didn't even have a real gun. It was a fake gun. So
I think I vaguely remember that story, I think.
Yeah.
What's the name of your show that you have?
I run a couple. We've been on a hiatus for a while, and we'll talk about that a little later. The Wasatch Report, where I talk about federalism and Wasatch Mountains. I live on the Wasatch Back behind Salt Lake City, Park City, that area there. And then the other one's the Red Hot Chili Prepper podcast, where we talk all about survival, preparedness, legalities of zoning regulations, animal restrictions. And recently, because I lost my home in a fire, I actually had two fires out here on my property in Utah. One was motorhome. There was a manufacturer's defect, caused an engine fire. And 3 months later, we lost the home. So I always believed in redundancy. So I had my home. I had a guest house in case something happened to my home. I also had a barn with a motorhome in case we had a wildfire and we needed to bug out. And we were prepared. And through those courses of events, we ended up losing absolutely everything except that what was in our barn. And then somebody burglarized the barn after we lost the house. So I had to
Leave it to
start.
people.
I had to start completely over. I think the hardest loss was having about 15 years worth of food that I had canned, elk I had harvested, venison, everything else. And that was
my gosh.
That was just gut wrenching. So
well, I'm glad that you're safe and that you made it through with your life and all. I mean,
were you there when the fires broke out? That's the question. Like for me were you safe the whole time, or did you come to this, or?
The first one, we actually had company, and I had the motorhome in the back of my property. It's a long piece of property. It's bifurcated by a creek, and the barn was on the other side. And I had the motorhome in there, and my son heard a poof, and then my other one came screaming outside saying, "What is all that smoke?" And I run out and I look in the barn, and there's this massive bright orange fire and black smoke going through the canyon. And the RV looked like it was intact. I thought for a nanosecond, maybe I can go. No, I can't get it out of there. And so it was the engine fire. And we didn't know that at the time, though, but we just saw the entire thing just go up. There's a 40-foot wall of flames. I have a picture of my son standing in front of, and we just watched it marching closer and closer and closer to the house. And we almost lost it. I live a ways. It took the fire department almost 45 minutes to get here. And right when SO, who was hosing off, he connected hoses and tried to get the area wetted down, just yelled, "Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate." And I have to say, my family performed. We were like a well-oiled machine. We had the car keys hung by the door. We moved vehicles. We got everything out of the way. I got some of the things out of the house that I wanted to get out. And the one thing what saved my house that day, and I want to spend a little time, a real important tool in preparedness and survival is something that's with you all the time, and you need to listen to it, and that's your intuition. So what's between your ears, your knowledge and your intuition. Few things saved me that day. And the first of which, a week before, I mow my backfield, because we've got, propensity for wildfires out here. And this was September, August, it gets really dry. My neighbors run cattle, the grass is always taller. So I mowed the lawn between my chicken coop and the field there. I thought, I was just about to go inside. It was hot, it was dusty. I said, I'm not gonna be lazy. I'm gonna mow that back grass. That bought us enough time to save the house. So
wow.
Yeah. The other thing that happened is
it's like a weird pattern recognition experience thing. You just know these, and it really does come. It's like that. Malcolm Gladwell, for all his flaws, has a couple good moments. The 10,000 hour thing where it kind of clicks for you. And I'm curious if prepping and drilling and all the work you do with your family, obviously that had to take time and took time to be so well organized when it came to an emergency.
And how many times do you are you doing something and you have that voice, like she said, like that intuition or that voice between your ears? It's like, oh, don't go sit on the couch and open a beer. Go make sure you do this. And how many times do you dismiss that voice and go have the beer versus follow through and do the thing? And it's in cases it can save your life. It's a couple questions, honestly. So first off, the Wasatch thing, it was bugging me, and I couldn't remember where I'd heard that before. There's a woman on X called Data Republican.
Oh yeah, she's very good out here.
Her husband owns the spirits of the Wasatch Distillery, and there was some sort of chicanery and some tomfoolery that happened where they were going after her for some stuff. And out of support, I don't know if she was doxxed or something happened. And out of support, I ended up buying a hoodie from Spirits of the Wasatch. So I have one of their hoodies, and I was trying to buy some of their whiskey, but they can't ship it out of Utah. So sidebar, Wasatch kept going through my head. But I want to ask you, so when I was a kid, my mom was really big on canning and storing food. never did like dehydrated stuff or anything like that. I didn't come up from a family of hunters, so I never had like elk or venison around. But she was really big on canning fruits, vegetables, that kind of thing. And I kind of, as a kid, I was like, my mom's the weirdo. Like, why did, none of my friends' moms did that. And I always thought it was like kind of strange. And now it's one of those things I look at where I wish I would have paid more attention to it. And I'm wondering how you got into it. If it was just something you sought out, did somebody pass that down to you, or what was it that triggered? Was it just the sheer, like, I need to learn how to survive stuff, or was something else an impetus for you learning how to do that?
A little bit of both, actually. I had cousins by marriage. They married into the family, and we would go down and spend time with their grandparents. And they had a farm in Santa Cruz. They had a really nice crop, vegetables, and we would water the garden. We called it Grandpa Brown's garden, and we'd water the garden and harvest in there. And Grandma Brown would can. She would can all the produce from the garden. She had I guess all of it out in the barn. And she even had those side-by-side tubs that she would wash in, stand there with her apron and doing that. And, I always admired it, but we never knew much about it. And so I had a couple other friends living out in the country that did it as well. And to me, it just always seems like it was too hard to do. And then I just started, and one of the things with the internet, you could get information easily. And I started learning how to can the food and pressure can, and I just got really into it. So I dehydrate. I had a freeze dryer. I'd like to get back into doing that again. And food sovereignty is really important, especially if you can grow your own and not rely. I mean, there was a truckers strike out in California, and I remember the shelves being pretty much bare. Another time I came home, we had no water in the house. There'd been a pipe burst in the community, and I had plenty of water. I mean, we were able to get by without having to worry about any of that. We had water for washing, water for drinking, water for cooking. Wasn't a problem. And it's very empowering to know that you are not just going to be held hostage by weather, social unrest, or something like that. And I tell people that think that they might not need to prepare, as it's just a matter of, if you don't feel like cooking that night, or if there is a bad storm and it's not safe to go out, if you just have a well-stocked pantry. And if you go to my website, SuzanneCSherman.com, you'll see a blog there for the well-stocked pantry and I also have a book, Food Preservation Strategies, which tells you how to have food on hand so you can make a meal just off what you have. You don't always have to have fresh food, and especially if you have, freeze-dried or frozen or canned foods for proteins, and you can just make whatever you need to. Again, you could be sick, you could lose, it could be loss of employment. All of these things happen. It doesn't have to be preparing for the apocalypse, the end of the world as we know it. You can have an illness, a devastating illness in the family, and this gives you something where you can hedge your bets there.
I find that fascinating because Mark and I are big firearms enthusiasts. I myself conceal carry.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I conceal carry.
That whole thing was a story. It was just to introduce Suzanne.
But to your point about habits and routines or whatever, I know I'm paraphrasing, but for me, like, when I think of my safety, I think of that. And so when I train with my guns all the time, and I'm trying to get to the point where if something happens, to your point about the keys being where they needed to be and all that, I want to get to a point where, God forbid, if I ever really have to use it, that I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I want it to be a second nature. I want it to be something that I just do because I've practiced it so much. And I'm realizing and listening to you talk that the survival part of food, shelter, or, taking care of your family, like, I take some of that stuff for granted, to be honest. And I never really equated that level of repetition and preparing with what I do with my training. But I'm realizing now that, like, that's just as important. And I got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah. Imagine right now, you can't get food for a week. Imagine right now, there's no water for a week. There was a great show. It was called American Blackout. I don't know if it was Nat Geo that aired it, but the premise was the power was out across the country for 7 days. And they had different stories, different scenarios, from college kids who got stuck in elevators, families who weren't prepared. Then, of course, you had the hardcore prepper family, and the scenario where, well, they brought one of the daughters had a boyfriend. Well, we'll bring him along too. Well, now there's a breach of security because he wants to share food with the neighbors who come by. Well, once you share with one, the word gets out.
Yeah.
So they had all these scenarios. A really good friend of mine, Boyd Craven, wrote a book called Good Fences, which also is a typical scenario. It's like an urban, kind of a suburban sprawl where a planned community went up against the property of a rancher. And just the ethical, the moral topics that are covered in that. Do you help other people? At what point does that interfere with your safety to do so? At what point is it not safe to barter? When can you invite other people in, or do you just lock them out? When do you the use of lethal force is justified, in normal times when there's an imminent and immediate fear of serious bodily injury or death to yourself or others. But now if somebody's going to take
it was
food,
good that we went into Iran because literally, I swear they were right on our door. These Iranians were right on our doorstep. I mean,
there's one on my lawn right now. Oh my God, I gotta go.
Well, so I gotta ask you this. So I'm in the suburbs. We're selling this house. I'm moving to our house in Southern Oregon. We're still in the suburbs. We got just under an acre there. So I don't have I don't want to say luxury, but I don't have the setup where I have a lot of land. So let me ask you, what would be the most essential things to do with a smaller property to try and have a leg up in a situation like this? If we don't have, giant garden, we have a big, good area for garden, but what I want to get into the book here in a second, but what do you think is the most essential things for a smaller property, and how do you accomplish those?
I even wrote a blog when I was writing for Survival Dispatch about raising livestock in your apartment.
Oh my God.
Guinea pigs, rabbits, things that are quiet. And so yeah, you can find that. That's on my website as well. I would say
I need some guinea bacon. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, whether or not you're raising your own animals or a situation like that, or if you want to just stockpile food, you want to stockpile the most bang for your buck. What's going to be high calorie? What's going to be the most nutritious? Lots of meats. That's why I love freeze-dried meats. That's why I love freeze-drying my own meats. And if you have a small apartment and you don't have a freeze dryer, I would say it's worth the investment to go out and get a lot of it. Or if you know somebody that freeze dries their own meats, trade, barter, do whatever you can with them. Form a community. Even when you move into this new home, get to meet other people, find like-minded people, say, hey, oh, you have a freeze dryer, cool, well, I can do this. If you have a trade, if you have something that you make, if you have a skill, if you're a plumber, you're an electrician, have something, woodworking skills, have something, form this community. Also have different types of gardens. Hey, if you grow zucchini, I can do tomatoes, or somebody has a fruit tree. That's really the way to solve these problems. I mean, I think if you look at what happened in Lahaina, everybody's standing around. Where's the government? Where's the government? The government wasn't coming. Yeah. What happened was the people came on.
They were there the whole time they started the thing. What are you talking about?
Well,
Suzanne?
they weren't there to help.
They were there the whole time. They were
so it was the people that showed up
people
showed up in boats to help them. So, and that's, we've talked about FEMA. We talked about disaster recovery after we lost one. I talked about not only did I lose my barn, but a couple months later, I lost my home. And the interesting thing is, the barn was actually a blessing because my adjuster said your home is severely underinsured. I would have lost it also another reason, because I mowed that lawn. The other main thing was I was just working on my RV a couple days before to get it ready for, interestingly enough, a safety inspection at the dealership. And typically when I'm going to leave early in the morning, I just park it right up against my house. Every time for 10 years, that's what I've done. I'm backing it up. I do the 3-point turn. I put it in drive to drive to my house. And a voice came from this side, right behind my right ear. It said, put it in the barn. And I stopped for a second. And okay. I backed it up, turned the other
grass,
way.
Suzanne. That's your problem. You're touching grass. You're literally in with like, you want to talk about like Gaia and like Mother Earth. I mean, the way you live your life, you're connected to these other, and
Yeah.
I think everyone looks out for each other in that weird world. So I think that's probably what those things are. I know that sounds weird, but
So had that been next to my house, that would have been it. So my adjuster had told me, hey, you're underinsured. So I upped the insurance on the house. I was still underinsured. I should have had somebody that really knew what they were doing help me with it, but I was still traumatized by that first fire. And going back again now to these thoughts, it was Christmas and just before Christmas, and I went downtown to go run some errands, do a yoga class, hang out a little bit. And something kept telling me, go home, go home, go home, go home. And I went home just to see smoke coming out, and my younger son was there, and I didn't know if he was in the house or not. He had been very sick, but stable enough for me to leave. He was an adult, but he was, one of the medications he was on was a heart medication, which made him very tired. So I did not know if he was okay. If I'd kept going down the road, I would have gone, there's no cell signal there. So I had to make the decision, do I go the opposite way? And I floored my car backwards. I couldn't see where I was going. I was screaming at myself, I don't know, out loud or just in my head to stop, 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 stop. I could not physically lift my foot off of the gas pedal. And then I backed it into a ditch. And then I had to run the other way away from the house to finally get a signal. And they said, yes, your son is out. He's the one that called us. So when the fire department got there, it's Christmas now, I'm not going to be able to get his heart medicine. I tapped one of the guys that was up at the top. I said, can I just run down in the kitchen and get his heart medicine? It's just down there. The fire's on the other end of the house. I know better. But your son's heart medicine's in there. What are you going to do? So he just looked at me like I was crazy. And I was literally out of my mind at the time. And he said, do you know what's going to happen to you if you open the door in that house? And I realized
there's a movie
title
with that name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Backflash. I think that's what it's called.
Backdraft, right? I think.
Backdraft. Yeah. And I realized that at that point I had been protected and we were going to be okay. I was physically stopped from being able to get into that house. And because I was in no point to think clearly at that time. So there was another thing too, not to get into any particular religion, but my cousin's Catholic. She gave me some rosaries and I had hung them on my post. I had a log bed. And when we were finally able to get back to the property and see it, my older son said, look at that. The bedpost was just a chart. It looked like it'd been in a campfire all night. The rosaries were undamaged.
Interesting, because rosaries catch my skin on fire. That's a really interesting comparison to the two stories that we would have. They're almost juxtaposed again. No,
some of our best friends are Catholics, so we don't hold it against them.
I have one weird question because you mentioned heart medication. So I have TRT. So I get sweet potato juice shoved into I shove it into my thigh once a week. Okay. I love to prep, but I'm also somehow stuck to this beautiful thing that we've created that through science. Obviously, science is a beautiful thing. We've come so far. So medication, you have this medication to which you're beholden as a prepper. It's almost like there's always something that they can just dangle and hold and keep you tethered to them in some way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's interesting. How do you work with that, especially at the level you are? I'm even at your level and I'm like worried that every week my testosterone's not going to get shipped to me or I'm not going to get it or something.
I don't know if you ever follow, what was her name? Nurse Amy or something. Anyway, Dr. William Alton, Dr. Bones, he has a great book on survival. But the sad truth is if your life depends on a pharmaceutical, I mean, like say you need to stop from having a heart attack or you have diabetes type 1 requiring insulin and that no longer becomes available, what the experts say is you're going to be the first to die. So you can try to stockpile some. Does that expire? This is why one of the reasons I say the most important thing is to not be dependent. My son this was temporary. He suffers from an immunological disorder that attacked his thyroid. It's called Graves' disease. And he'd been in and out of hospitals. Nobody could diagnose it until he was so sick he needed to go on heart medication. He's past that now. Um,
That's
but
good.
if
I'm
you
glad to hear
have,
that.
yeah, if you have a lifelong chronic condition that you are absolutely dependent upon it, okay, some people can stockpile some a little here, a little there, but at the end of the day, when you're out, you're out. So the best thing is to try to prevent the need to ever have to be on, say, heart medicine. To what if you're in the middle of chemo? What if you're in the middle of radiation therapy? Live your life so you are, you put a lot of deposits in that good health bank account. So if that does happen, you don't want to have to rely on that medication. Learn herbal remedies, learn things like that. Stay in shape. Be
what she's saying, Mark, is you'll be fine without your TRT. Don't worry.
No, I
You
won't,
might-
bro. This is
You
how they
might
got
cry
me.
a little
This is
bit
the
more.
thing. Dude, I was bamboozled, my friend, and that's what I'm trying to share. Because TRT replacement, the way I get it, turns off your ability to make it,
I'm
and
aware.
getting that back turned on in the right way is
Yep.
almost impossible. And just having that getting rugged at the numbers I'm at is like this weird thing. So it's like I got sucked into the thing and got put on the teat, man. And it's just one of these educational things. I'm just trying to share.
brother,
It's great. The TRT stuff is great. However, not to the point where it turns off.
They tried to take my son's thyroid out. They said, well, let's just remove his thyroid. I said,
And you went iodine, right? Hopefully, or something. You went with
we did
something
nothing.
iodine or...
Oh no,
Oh, okay.
we did medication,
We did potassium iodide for
lifestyle.
them.
We did lifestyle changes. A little. Now he's on a very low dose of methimazole, low dose naltrexone. Naltrexone is actually an opioid antagonist that at higher doses they use to get people off of opium. But we have got a fabulous provider. If anybody's in Utah, it's called Whole Health Team. Jason Hone, he is in Provo, Utah, and he literally saved my son's life. So the key is to find a provider that can get you so your life does not require these. Do blood tests regularly, not just the regular crap that they do, but get somebody like a functional medicine doctor that will really find what's going on and then find out so you will be resilient when the time comes. You don't want to have to be reliant on this. Plus, who wants to live reliant on medication? I have a friend that I grew up with, and I talk to her once a year, always at the holidays. And she just said, oh yeah, she's my age. And she says, I have no energy to exercise. I'm on blood pressure medication. And what was it? Blood pressure, what else? Thinners or whatever else. And,
And
statins. That was the one. Statins, blood pressure,
man.
And
Don't
says,
do it. Don't start. I just know that one.
Then
Yeah. I told my doctor
but
no so many times.
I drink like a fish. It's like, okay, so why you're, so things like that. I mean, alcohol metabolizes into carcinogens. So
I take meth and my teeth fall out, and I scratch my skin off.
It's got to be a priority. And I will say, I do have a functional medicine doctor. I do my blood work about every 2 to 3 months, and I do get into some of the weeds on stuff that isn't a normal blood panel. And Mark,
yes.
I've got a brother that is in the same boat. I got a brother that started doing TRT because his levels were low, and he's in the same boat where he started taking the synthetic, and now his body doesn't make any of his own. His free testosterone is 0. Yep. And so now he's got a 900 or something, but his free testosterone is 0. What I did, and it still is a pharmaceutical, so I'm not saying this is better. What I did is I started, when my wife and I were trying to get pregnant, I started taking something called Clomid, and Clomid is what they generally give to females who are trying to get pregnant. But for males, there's like an off-label use where it makes you make your own testosterone, but more. So I started taking Clomid, and my testosterone got up to like 800-900, but my free testosterone is like 110. So it ended up being something that helped quite a bit. And then there's a bunch of herbal remedies and things you can take too that help raise your testosterone. Deadlifting, lifting heavy weights also does that too for you. It stimulates a lot of that stuff. But yeah, TRT, the synthetic stuff, it's the perfect example of there's no free lunch in nature. Everything's a trade-off.
Yep.
And as soon as you go down that road, no offense, you know where you're at, but as soon as you go down that road, it's like you get the short-term gain, but you have a long-term, a setback for sure.
Well, like the terzepatides now that people are taking, my goodness.
Yep.
Oh yeah. semaglutide and all that stuff you're talking
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah.
The Ozempic stuff?
GLPs. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
saw
So we
I
have
saw
a bunch
Kelly
of people
Osbourne
here.
the other day.
Oh my God, that she looks like Skeletor.
Somebody
Holy
posted a picture of Kelly Osbourne and said, "I bet Ozzy."
Oh
wears
my
that."
God. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore did a great bit on it. He was talking about like she's grieving still. She's grieving
Yeah.
over her father.
Everybody
Yeah, that
grieves
doesn't look like
differently, right?
grief. Yeah, bone loss and muscle loss and with cartilage
Vision
and all
loss,
the everything.
stomach
Ooh,
stomach
and
paralysis, thyroid cancer.
It's not worth it. It's not worth.
No.
Just be
it's
if
not-
that's
yeah.
the problem.
My doctor's like, hey, you should go to semaglutide because I am type 2 diabetic and I take metformin. At least metformin's tried and true. Been a long time. It's actually beneficial even for people without diabetes. Has some really long-term beneficial. But the other stuff you're taking, they're like, hey, how about this stuff? And I'm like, no. How about this stuff? I'm like, no. How about this stuff? And I'm like, no. And he gives me his statins. I go, what's a percentage of people that feel pain? He goes, well, a few percentage. I'm like, it's over 20%. You're lying, and you just call them out all the way. I had a doctor try to give me the jab hey, you should get the jab. You're diabetic. No, I'm not going to get the jab. When I came back to them, I said, hi, I scheduled with you just so I can tell you to your face, I will never work with you again. I'm actually going to go out to the lobby right now and tell everyone that anyone that works under you or that is associated with you should change their doctor. That's how disappointed I am in you and your system. And that's how bad it got. This is how much like lying's happening. And this is why we do this show. Educate people like yourself. You just provide so much education just in such short time. So I'm just ready to hear more. We have so many people in the chat too. Derek's talking about some medical free thing. Derek, we'll talk about that at some point. William's here. Richie Rich is here. We've got Rob. Somebody, is it Rob that just made a couple statements here? So welcome everyone.
I've got to ask.
Go ahead,
Suzanne.
Jake.
So going from criminal defense lawyer, getting into prepping and survivalist, what under that umbrella, what brings you to federalism and to write this book? Because this book is really what kind of hooked me. Like what put you to that? Because I really want to dive into. I'm all about decentralization, 100% in the workplace, all the way up to government. And Mark can speak for himself. I'm at the point now where I'm a libertarian, but I'm an anarchist at this point. Like I would
past
rather
you, dude. I'm so past you. It's not even funny anymore. I'm
zero government whatsoever. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I can live with it.
No, libertarianism is a gateway to anarchy. I am a total anarchist.
100%.
Yeah, stop being a libertarianism for our libertarian friends, guys. Come on, man. Just pass go. Collect your $200. Just go through the goddamn stop sign. All right. That's the whole point, is to go through that stop sign. Just go.
How did you get to the federalism stuff? I really want to know.
I love the topic. I love the government, the civics classes I took in high school. I just always had a penchant for it. Couldn't do math. Stopped in second grade. Couldn't do math at all. But loved government. Loved civics. Went to college, UCLA. My field of concentration was public law. Then I went to law school. Loved constitutional law, and just really enjoyed it. And when I went to law school, constitutional law was my favorite topic. Got a perfect score on the final, and just loved it. So that's why I went into criminal law, because we had to argue a lot of cases based on that. And I homeschooled my sons. And I thought it would be really important to teach the younger generation coming up why where we are right now is not what was ever intended. And is there any way to right this wrong? One of the reasons I left California was the laws no longer suited me there. I didn't want to live under that system. So I went to Utah. That was the point of federalism. You have a choice when you decentralize. So if you look at the very limited powers when the Constitution was ratified, the powers that were actually delegated to the states, the promises that were made when the states ratified the Constitution, the powers were very limited, and they were enumerated, Article 1, Section 8. And it didn't take more than 20 years under the Marshall Court for that system of federalism, which James Madison described. The government is federal rather than national in nature, meaning the government has limited powers with adequate resources in which to carry out those powers. Also in Federalist, he said that, their powers are few and defined, while those remaining with the states are numerous and indefinite, considering the lives, liberties, property, and internal happiness and operations of the state. And that's what we see in the 10th Amendment. This book is actually a compilation of articles I wrote for the 10th Amendment Center, as well as the Abbeville Institute. I was at a symposium in Dallas a few years back on nullification and secession. And Don Livingston, if you're aware of who he is a historian, philosopher with the Abbeville Institute. And I was telling him about why we are so off track and why everybody thinks, I call them the black robed messiahs, the Supreme Court justices. Everybody looks to them to see what the law of the land is, be it abortion, be it gun rights, be it immigration. Yeah. And that's not republicanism. That is not what was intended. In fact, even the system now, if all of this comes from Congress, representation at the time was one representative in the House of Congress for, I think, every 35,000 people. Now it's probably 800,000 people. And they never read your letters. Stop writing these people letters. Nobody reads them. Nobody cares. I have a good friend I used to do radio with who was a senior legislative assistant in Washington, D.C. They said they never see them. They don't care. We know who is pulling their strings. It's painfully obvious by now. It's the lobbyists. It's foreign nations, one in particular. And your vote really doesn't matter. And that's a problem. We have so much power consolidated.
Interesting you say that. Interesting. It's just interesting. You know, it's interesting you would bring up that one, because we don't think about that one. Interesting, because I never deal with that one. It's just interesting that you bring it up. Have you seen that Gavin Newsom, turning himself into a little?
Yes, I have.
Oh, it's so funny watching him.
I will say, you bring up the 10th Amendment Center. We had Jason Rink on a while back, and Jason does a ton of work for the 10th Amendment Center, and it really kind of opened my eyes to it. I had no idea that you wrote some articles for that. So it all kind of ties together and makes sense. We're big fans of nullification. Mark, as I'm sitting here watching, I don't know if Free's watching this, but I think Suzanne would be an amazing contestant on Are You Smarter Than a Politician?
Absolutely, Suzanne. We should have
That's a pretty low bar. I'm up.
You know what we'll call it? I've got it. We'll call it the prepisode.
There you go.
We'll get three preppers on there, and you gotta have a prepisode, and it'll be phenomenal.
No, our friend Free connected Mark and I, which is how we started doing this show together. And he runs a show with an amazing woman named Terry Batts on YouTube that's called Are You Smarter Than a Politician? And it is kind of a tongue-in-cheek description. Everybody knows that, amoebas are smarter than politicians, but the whole premise of the show is to really push liberty-minded ideas, and Free puts a lot of love and a lot of energy into writing questions that kind of lead people along to answer questions, and nullification comes up a lot. So Mark and I are pretty well versed on it, and I don't want to cut you off. Keep going, but we're very impressed that we're on the same wavelength right now.
Yeah. First, I want to address a comment I'm seeing here that's repeating itself. It says no Mormon is a friend, and I'm not a member of the LDS Church. In fact, I referred to a friend of mine,
by the way.
A friend I was talking to in San Francisco that I was referring to. She said, "Why do you want to move out to Utah with all those Mormons?" I said, "You live in San Francisco." Are you kidding?
No. By the way, Mormon people who adopt Mormon as something are base good people. Also, they're great CIA agents. They make great CIA. So it's like this weird thing about it's like the goodness of the person allows them to be like, as long as they can adopt whatever that thing is, the ideology, they're great at being clay for that. If that makes sense. A good
friend of mine actually posted that. I said, you act like it's a compliment, because he's both in military special ops and a member of the LDS Church, and I just kind of poked a little fun at him. But I will say, the LDS friends that I have in this community, they have been here for me since my boys and I came out here. Always welcome at their events. When I had the fire, they were here both times. What can I do? And I told the bishop, I said, it's Labor Day weekend and it's 9:00 at night. I have no power to pump my well on the embers, and the fire department left. I need an electrician, because I'll be back in 10 minutes. And he was, and we had water. So,
right. And look, I'll say the same for the Mennonites. I'll say the same for the Pennsylvania Dutch. I'll say the same for the Amish. I'll say there are communities that are amazing communities, and there's some great people in those. my Mormon thing was totally a glib thing. It's a religion.
It is though.
government.
It's all about people. Like my comment earlier about what keeps the world from interacting and loving each other. It's Mormon. It's religion and government, and it's the people that are in those religions that are amazing people. There's a lot of amazing Mormons. I really good friend of mine in my industry is Mormon, and we don't talk about the magic underwear, but the rest of it with the way that they look after family and the values that they have, it's really remarkable. And if you take away the Joseph Smith stuff and you take away some of that part of it, like the values that they live by are really remarkable. I don't know if you saw, there's a show called American Primeval on Netflix that Peter Berg did a year or two
It's
ago.
on my list. I've heard of that. Yeah.
It is. I'm telling you, it is so top notch, amazing. But it's about the settling of Utah and Brigham Young coming in, being the governor. And
you mean the raping of the Fanchers by the Mormons? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It's that too. Bart,
okay,
yeah.
I just want to check because I've got a Fancher buddy of mine, so I know someone who is a Fancher who had his family attacked and had all their money stolen.
But I strongly recommend it, Suzanne. I think you'll really like it.
It's like I said, I think bad organizations capture the greatest of people. That's the problem. Good people believe in good things, so they don't see that things can be corrupted because I think they're good people at the core. Yeah. And that's what's cool about like what we do is we are a collection of very unique, probably disagreeable in general people, but good core people. And that's how we work together is like we just respect that at the core we will try to help each other out in that way. It's a different way to look at it. It's not top down, it's bottom up. I don't know another way.
Yep. What was it? Brian McClanahan, a historian. I really like his solution. Think locally, act locally. Stop looking to these sociopaths in Washington, D.C. for your answers. So back to federalism. I forgot where we left off.
I think we're starting. So we'll start with the federalism nullification, the 10th Amendment Center and all that. You mentioned Jason Rink, Jake, as well. So
yeah, I met actually at that symposium I went to, in addition to Don Livingston, Michael Bolden was there. We had a great time together hanging out. He's a lot of fun. He's been on my show.
I played a couple clips of him during Jason's, when I met Jason at the Ron Paul barbecue, when we had him on the show, I had Michael clips ready. He's like, yeah, rule number 1. It's just like just watching with his cool little Derby hat, right? It's like his little cab driver hat. It's pretty fun. Yeah,
we'd get all sorts of fired up. Mike Meharry, who was also their national communications director, is a good friend of mine too. So yeah, I love those guys. But this is the thing that the states don't understand. A lot of people say, the topics I write about in this book are really triggering for both sides. And this is why I say you really do need to be consistent if you're going to look at it from a constitutional perspective. So for instance, immigration. And early on, this was even a point of contention from before the ink was dry on what I call the holy parchment. So I tell people, show me where immigration is a delegated power. Where did the states delegate it? And there's a chapter in my book called The Constitutional Solution to Immigration. And going by a purely originalist perspective is it was a matter for the states, because when the states ratified the Constitution, they were sovereign and independent states on a par as England, France, Spain, and just as stated in the Declaration of Independence. The problem is when you have all this nationalization, the Supreme Court saying, oh, you have to educate these kids, we have to provide medical, and here's federal grants for all of this. It's become taken over. And just because there are federal statutes saying that immigration, that where the Congress has power, they just took it. They were never delegated that authority. So when, from that perspective, looking at now what's happening in Minnesota, looking at what happens in California, where they're fighting ICE and they don't want ICE there. As much as I hate siding with Newsom or Pritzker or Horchel, any of these, they're from a constitutional perspective, right? Correct, if you take that. But even early on, for instance, John Adams took the position that yes, the federal government had power, and that was the Alien and Sedition Act when he got the Alien Acts. And guess what? It ended the power of the Federalists, and the Democrat Republicans took over when Jefferson was elected. It cost him his office.
I will say though, too, to your point about if you just stick to the Constitution, there's going to be people where you're kind of on their side, but it's because the sides that they're on kind of move. If you're on the Constitution side and you're straight down the middle and you're honest with, it's not about the parties, it's not about the ideology of the parties, it's about the Constitution of the country. And sometimes there's going to be a Newsom or a Pritzker on your side. Sometimes there's going to be a Republican on your side, unless you're a Massey where you're on the Constitution all the time. But to your point, I mean, yeah, sure, sometimes Newsom or Pritzker is going to be associated with that. But if you're doing the right thing, the people on that side are going to change all the time. They just change with the topic.
But I'd argue they're not associated with it, because under Biden, they were happy to shut down your city and do all this other stuff. So from a completely different standpoint, they're not happy to close down on X, Y, and Z because it helps their cause. And this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? I mean, they need to be held accountable at these levels.
They're opportunists that pretend they're on a side.
Yeah. Yeah. But to that point is like, if you stick to principle, there's no side to be on. It's the truth is, look, Pretty good. Breonna Taylor, all these people, state overreach. That's what caused all of those incidents to happen, was state overreach. That's the issue. If someone says, but Pretty had it coming because he kicked a tail light the week before, that's not the issue. The issue is the state initial overreach, just like a state's initial aggression on a country has resulted in multiple American deaths. We are the ones who are trying to save people's lives. It's interesting, right, that we're the ones being vilified here.
Yeah, and consistency really matters. You know, we had a really big example of that with the Dobbs v. Jackson case, where everybody said, "Oh, Roe was overturned." No, it wasn't overturned in so much; it was properly returned to the states.
That's how it should be. Yeah.
But the Supreme Court, in their infinite wisdom, at the same session in the New York Times Rifle and Pistol Association, I think that was the name of it, versus Bruin, they did not allow, what they did was they retained the federal power instead of returning gun laws to the state. Because what we saw was incorporation of the Second Amendment against the states in the McDonald case in Chicago. So what happened there was, well, they just incorporated the Second Amendment against the states. And people say, well, it's a constitutional right. And it really isn't. The Second Amendment, there's no such thing as a Second Amendment right. The Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, these are restrictions against the general government, saying it's none of their business whatsoever. So now you have to turn to the constitutions of the states. Yes. California is silent on firearms. So people say, so the Congress of California can regulate firearms any way they please. And I've been one to say, well, if it's silent, then they have no authority because nobody ever granted them that power in the first place. So even all of the laws in California on firearms are unconstitutional in the California Constitution, but good luck getting, California to agree with that. But people celebrate when a law that is harsh or, against firearms, any kind of gun rights in California, is overtaken or overturned by a federal court. And again, what are you doing when you celebrate that? You acquiesce more power to the federal government.
I mean, I couldn't say it better. I'm right there in lockstep with you.
Yeah. And this is why, here's another example, national concealed carry reciprocity. Massey is a big proponent of that one.
Oh yeah,
and I've said,
I'm following that bill.
Yeah, it is a Trojan horse. You can find that in my book. The feds have no authority to enforce the acceptance of a firearm permit in one state or from one state to another. And people say, oh yeah, well, they do that with driver's licenses. No, it's a pass through. I had to get a Utah license when I moved to Utah. And also the people of the state of California might not like, cowgirls like me coming in with their firearms. I mean, I left because the ones I had were no longer legal in California. They tried the compromises with the bullet buttons and all that garbage.
Wait, you mean it could hold like 6 bullets?
Yeah.
How restrictive is it 10 or less now? I don't even know the restriction.
I think it's 10 or
less.
I'm in Washington. It's the same idea.
When what I had said here, if you pass this act, and I had a very heated discussion, animated discussion with a guy actually named Heller, who had a radio show in Arizona. And he was very much, you remember that one, Charles Heller? You're in Arizona. You might know who he was.
I will look Charles Heller up, but the name sounds familiar. Is he a poker player too, by any chance?
I don't know. He blocked me
It
after
sounds
this
like
conversation.
He may have taken all my chips
but he thought it was wonderful. So I said, well, let me ask you this: what's going to happen if Utah is a shall issue state? If you are a law-abiding citizen, you're not a member of a prohibited class. We're not going to go down that road, but you are granted one just because you asked for one. In California, it's a May issue, and good luck getting one in California. So they have different standards. So I said, what's going to happen now to the states with the different standards? And California, you have to actually take, training where you actually have to take a firearms test, and your license is attached to one weapon. So we don't have that in Utah. So how are we going to figure that out? And he goes, well, it's just going to go to the Supreme Court. And I said, well, that's stupid. Because now, what kind of laws do you think we're going to get? We're going to get requirements more like California's, and less like Utah's, Wyoming's. Utah, we don't even have to have a permit to conceal carry here. So you're going to end up now with the ability, or losing the ability, to have more firearm restrictions if you try to impose. If I try to impose a permit, I won't get one. But if I try to impose one on California, eventually I'm going to have to jump through all the hoops that people in California do. And it's just an overall really, really bad idea. You're telling the federal government, who has absolutely zero authority to regulate firearms other than arming the militia, go ahead. You can be the sole arbiter of who in every single state across this continental landmass can have a concealed carry permit. It's absolutely a ridiculous thing, and that's a huge disappointment with Thomas Massey for me.
That's fair. Infringed. I never looked at it from that perspective. I will say, though, to your point, like, a lot of people get mixed up that they think the Second Amendment is what grants them the rights, and they don't realize the Second Amendment is what keeps the government from infringing on your natural, God-given rights or rights that you're born with. I would love to see just a constitutional carry like Texas and some of these other states, where you don't have to have anything. You just, because there is a Second Amendment and because we have the right anyway, we just get to carry. We don't need to have a card. We don't need to have a license for it. The problem is, in the world that we're in, in the place we're in our country, you can be right and still get thrown in a cage. And that's the part that's terrible is you can be completely right within the Constitution, within your rights, and still end up, on the wrong side of the situation. And that's what looms over people's heads, in my opinion. I have a family. So if I want to carry something where I'm supposed to not carry, even though I have the right to do it, if I get in trouble, it still disrupts my ability to provide for my family. And that's the threat that a lot of people live under. And I think the intention behind the 50 state reciprocity is, I understand where it's coming from, but I think a constitutional carry everywhere without a permit is really the way to be. But we could go
and that has to go state by state, so what constitution? That would be their constitution. So the 10th Amendment, not the Second Amendment, really is going to be our standard for there. That's why I really don't like when people say, oh, constitutional carry, we can do it because of the Second Amendment. No, the Second Amendment only means it's none of the federal government's business. And interesting, the Supreme Court right now is hearing arguments in a case involving whether or not people that use cannabis can have firearms. And I wrote an article about that. That's also in my book, because Connor Boyack, whom I've also interviewed out here, he was the
Connor Boyack is Tuttle Twins, right?
Yeah, Tuttle Twins, and he was one of the.
Right. He was. By the way, marijuana is a terrible, terrible substance. I don't know anyone who would dare even think about any kind of cannabis use in any possible way whatsoever.
It affects your vision. You have to wear glasses when you use it.
I hear you have to switch to glasses.
Yeah, but he was the driving force behind medical marijuana out here. And I said, first of all, we had some heated debates online about that as well. And I said, the other problem is too, we have the ATF form 4473, which asks you if you use that, and if you do, or even if you provide it, that you are now a member of a prohibited class. So I said, by making people have to get a medical permission to use this for whatever reason, for medicinal, or just because you want to, now makes you a member of a prohibited class, and it's a felony to lie on the ATF form. So it's but it's still passed out here. I was very much against it. I think marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, should be like tomatoes. You want to grow it in your own yard? Cool. You want to buy it in a store? Cool. You want to share it with your friends? Cool. It's none of your damn business. So
I would extend
100%
that.
disagree with both of you. That is ridiculous. I won't have it.
I would
The
extend
marijuana,
that to,
cannabis, that's disgust. That's a terrible, terrible habit. Some would call it a chronic habit even, and I won't have it. I just won't have it with you.
I mean, I would extend
thank
that
you
to
for your input.
psilocybin and anything else too. Like I'm very
Yeah.
much to the point where
Yes, 100%. Look, I used to be very anti-drug in that very just neocon sense. Like,
same.
Gotta criminalize them. Criminalization is good. Let's do.
There's drugs for
Right.
that. They just want to get
Right.
high.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I just remember the drug commercial, the cocaine walking in circles, and Rachel Lee Cook with the smashing of the pan and stuff before she was on She's All That. Anyway, I just remember all this stuff. So look, I was programmed. Admittedly, I allowed myself or whatever. I programmed. I had to deprogram. It hurt. But like, why not decriminalize it? That's called, what's that? Isn't that Darwinism? Like, people will take themselves out. The people who really want to take themselves out will. This clears out the dredge we really want. If you're that addictive, I would argue that all this porn addiction, drug use, these are effects of an unhealthy society because our lack of prosperity. Not because it should always be available. It will always be available, but it goes down just like crime goes down when everybody's rich. Dubai, they leave their doors open in Dubai. They leave their doors open. There's no crime because everyone is rich. There's no need for it. There's prosperity. And this is what people don't understand is, like, war might be profitable for some, but it's not prosperous. And we need peace. We need to have more openness like this, because that's how we're going to succeed.
Well, we're seeing that, there's been a war on the family, and this goes back to the progressive era when they were getting, the propaganda of, what was it, Rosie the Ratcheter, or was that who it was?
Rosie the Riveter.
Riveter, yeah. And, getting the women out of the home, because they realized, hey, there's 50% of this population we're not taxing now. So let's get them out of the home.
Or
Let's get them
adding
working.
to the
Let's
labor
get the
pool
kids in
to
schools.
lower your payout. That's really what the wages too. It lowered wages because it doubled the work pool. Like,
And
we're so manipulated. God, we're so stupid little chimps chasing these people who claim to lead us. What are we doing? What is wrong with us?
I would tell people, moms, stay home, raise your kids, and homeschool them, get them out of the government schools, because the government schools exist there. It's based off the system in Prussia, which was designed to make good little factory workers. And we're seeing the results of it right now. Like I said, I not only homeschooled, I unschooled my kids. And Connor actually wrote a book about that, Passion-Driven Education. And my kids are doing great. And my older son, as we were talking before went on, has a extremely profitable, very successful go-kart racing team. And he'd be playing. We had this big round table in the kitchen. It was lined all around the perimeter with Hot Wheels. But every time one passed in a race, he'd go over to Excel. I can't even use Excel, and just log all their positions on Excel. He was 6 years old in doing this, and now he runs his team. And it was like, passion-driven education. Let them learn about what they're passionate. Yes, I taught them other things, and but this is what he got to do. And I thought, is he ever going to stop playing with Hot Wheels? And no, he hasn't. And he's doing better than I did practicing law. So
our Hot Wheels collecting can be very valuable down the road, first of all.
Yeah.
So Suzanne, before we continue, just because you mentioned Connor Boyer, you mentioned all this greatness. Jake and I are going to Freedom Fest in Las Vegas this year. It's July 8th through the 12th. I am almost 100% certain that Connor's going to have a Tuttle Twin booth there. He's had it there the last 2 Freedom Fests, and it just makes sense for him to be there. He might even be a speaker on a panel. So you should have everybody come out, do go-kart racing around Vegas, and while you're at Freedom Fest, I think that would be a great time for.
I've never been. Maybe I'll go this year. That'd be fun. You guys
I
are
can
going?
convince you to go there. It's amazing minds. It's going to be
Okay.
amazing. I'll talk to you after. We've got Valerie Lee, who was Valerie Durham. She got married recently. Congratulations, Valerie. But she'll be on in 2 weeks, Jake, right? Yeah, after Andrew Heaton next week. So,
Yes.
but Freedom Fest that seems like a place that you would excel. Like, not to have a booth. I mean, even as a speaker, I could get you in touch with them, but it seems like you would have a story and you could show some really interesting or have some interesting things to share.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
we're gonna do a live show from there. So if we do, we get you on the panel and do a
Cool.
show there. That'd be really fun.
100%.
I know
Give a
before
lawyer
we
a
got
microphone
started,
and audience.
I know before we got started, you had told me that you were fighting a cold and that you were good for about an hour. So I want to check in with you and make sure we're not keeping you longer than we need to.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little, but I just wanted to let everybody know one of the things that got me into this and into radio was, and it also ties into the homeschooling, is when my sons were about 12 and 13, I took them on a trip in the motorhome before it blew up all around the country to places of historical significance. And I was just aghast at the lies and the propaganda that I saw at these places. And I actually, I ended up writing about it. I did some radio appearances about it. And you can find that on my website called Lies My National Park Told Me. And I would get into it with these places, most notably the Lincoln myth and the lies about Lincoln. Oh my gosh, we were at Harper's Ferry, and I said, "Well, what do we do here? Where do we go?"
Tom DeLorenzo books.
Yes,
Tom DeLorenzo books.
Tom actually put one of my articles on the Lou Rockwell page. I love Tom DeLorenzo, the real Lincoln. Yeah, he's awesome. And we were listening to the National Park, the Service Ranger, and his little outfit and his badge and hat, and he's talking about the geography of the area and all the geological features. It was really interesting. And then he says, now, because we know what else happened at Harper's Ferry. The thing about John Brown's raid is it turned the Civil War into a war over slavery. And my son just puts his head down. Oh no, here she goes. Up goes my hand.
Yeah.
When was the raid? 1859. War hadn't started yet. And we just went on. And I said, how do you Lincoln's own words said that he wasn't going to war to end slavery. We went this whole discussion, and he said he always wanted to end slavery. He didn't understand about the 100-day window and the Emancipation Proclamation. This same thing happened over in at Madison's house at Montpelier, and they had these cutout figures in his dining room, and the host says, now here's Lafitte, one of the characters that was there, chided Madison because he owned slaves, but he was talking about freedom, and he was a hypocrite. And so I raised my hand. I said, do you consider him a law-abiding citizen? Was he considered a criminal at the time? And she goes, no. I said, was it legal to free slaves at the time? Well, it was illegal in some states. Virginia, we're in one. It was illegal to free them here, and nobody wanted to hear it. Everybody's getting mad at me. And they said, can we just go back and talk about the room? I said, by all means, let's talk about the wallpaper. And
what's funny thing to me is Nikki Haley's so dumb, she actually said something correct. She's so dumb. They asked her if what started why Lincoln, whatever, and it wasn't over slavery. She said it wasn't over slavery. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Fine. Oh my God, Nikki Haley found a nut. That blind squirrel found a nut. Holy mackerel. But she got vilified for it. People, and I'm like, that's actually
I remember that too.
Because they
the
kept
one time.
You get the one time. Right. It's to keep the union together, everyone. Hello.
That's always the knock on Jefferson too, is Jefferson had slave kids and he didn't even free his own slaves. Like you couldn't
he
free
couldn't, he
slaves
was in debt. He was in debt.
It was illegal. You couldn't do it.
Not only that,
my understanding is that it was such a large haul just to speak about individual freedom. You wanted to jump both hurdles in one shot. I mean, that's allegedly where the back and forth was as well. You know what I mean?
His only option was to sell them too. So, and that was the worst thing that could happen to slaves.
it doesn't defend it. Just speaks at the time. Obviously, we've come so far, and thank goodness for it.
If you go to Monticello, and I write about that too, there's a sandwich board all about the slavery experience. And it completely overshadows what Thomas Jefferson was about. There was no discussion about the olive branch. There was very little about the Declaration of Independence and about federalism and what he believed in, and freedom of conscience. It's never in there. And again, nobody's saying that slavery was okay, but I wrote an article. The first one that was published on this regard was for the American Conservative. And I got excoriated in that. Oh, white woman goes to plantation, is mad that they talk about slaves. Now, it wasn't just, it was the proportion. You can do both. You can cover both.
Yeah.
And it was, and never did they mention that when he was in the House of Burgesses, he tried to tax the importation of slaves because he knew that would be the first step in eventually leading to it going away. And that wasn't brought up. And King George prohibited that. So there were a lot of barriers, and it was just, you can read more about it, and the slant on progressivism at every single battlefield. I spoke at an education conference for the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and I was telling them about, we were walking Kennesaw battlefield. I stop in and listen to watch the videos. They play a movie, you can see as an introduction in there. And they were reading a diary from a Union soldier who said, "These rebels fight with such fierceness. It's a shame their cause isn't noble." And what I said to the crowd there, as I said, on the mountain, on Kennesaw Mountain, you can actually see the city of Atlanta. If fighting for your country, your values, your very family, your very way of life is not a noble cause, I do not know what is. But that's why they obfuscate the real reason, and they make it all about slavery. Because then, if you try to bring about the truth on this, oh, you're a racist, and bring that, and it's the lies, and by making Lincoln look like a hero is how we got to this point, while we look for every solution to be at a federal level. And a lot of the problems we have today, we probably wouldn't be experiencing if he had just let the South go on their way, which, by the way, they had every legal right to do, because 3 states reserved the right to leave when the Constitution was ratified. And under the Equal Footing Doctrine, that term, a condition applied to all the states. This is why they never tried Jefferson Davis. Why would they? Because it would have come out. His attorney, Alan Bledsoe, would have argued the ratification process, and then it would have come out, oh my hell, Lincoln committed an act of treason.
I think
that is a perfect place to end that.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
I'll let you do it, but I'm like blown away right now. I want to call up Joel Ellenwood and be like, "Hey, you got to check out this conversation." So I'll be messaging you.
Anybody can reach out to me too. My website is SuzanneSherman.com. You can reach out to me there, and find me on X, Cowgirl Esquire. And yeah, I really appreciate coming out.
I will say we got to have you on again. This was definitely not enough.
I love it.
But this is a great conversation. I hope you feel better. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I hope you feel better.
And,
thanks, guys.
Everybody follow him. I'll follow Suzanne, and I'm going to finish this book. I promise.
Oh yeah, look forward to hearing from you guys again. Thank you.
All right, Mark, hit the button.
All right, so we're gonna hit this button. Suzanne, stick around just for a minute. You want to check out this awesome ending because it is so cool. Our friend Drop the Mask did it. We've got a couple cameos too, so it might be pretty cool. Jake, man, this was a great one. Next week we have at Mighty Heaton, Andrew Heaton. He was recently on Timcast like 2 weeks ago. They got into it. Heaton certainly held his ground and then some. It was beautiful. I can't wait to talk with him. After that, Valerie Lee. Then Jake and I are going to break down, I think, the religious Andrew Wilson and Dave Smith conversation, possibly. We'll figure that one out. But then we've got Amity on the 1st of April. And then we've got some openings after that. If by Whiskey, thank you, Suzanne. This has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much. We will see you on the other side, and we'll talk more, but please get better soon. Everyone, this has been another If I Whiskey. Jake, thank you again. I will leave it up to our cameo gentleman to lead us out of this evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Wednesday night. This has been If by Whiskey, and we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Subscribe to If by Whiskey. Fuck Liberty
Oh, thank
Lockdown.
you.
Subscribe to this show.